It started with our parish council. We were having a retreat, and at our dinner, Father John, who's the pastor of our church, was telling us about his trips to Africa. And I'd always wanted to do something like that, but it just life gets in the way a lot of times, and so it was on the back burner. I was not doing anything with that. So all of a sudden, I thought, wow, I'd like to go. And I said, well, I'd like to go. And the words just jumped out of my mouth without even thinking about it. And then I went home, told my husband about it. He was supportive. I kind of went through my work schedule and everything to line up and see if that trip would work out. And lo and behold, it did. So here we are, ready to take off. We take off. Everything was fine. We land in Nairobi, and the nun that came to pick us up at the airport says, your country's just been bombed. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. My heart did actually sink for a minute. I just thought, I just don't know. This is, didn't have any details, so we don't know where did this happen, what happened, who's been injured. We didn't have any details. As we were driving to the rectory of the priest where we were going to be staying, there was a black and white TV there with really kind of like just really etchy. You could barely see. All you saw was this billowing black smoke on his TV, and you really couldn't hear any much of a story. And so it was very scary. But I thought about it, and I said, I'm here. God put me here. I'm safe. He's going to get me through this. And that was it was like a revelation. I just felt at peace. But in the ensuing couple of days, we finally were able to get some communication to the U.S. I sent my husband an email, said I'm fine, I hope everything's fine at home, and he was able to communicate back. So that was a blessing. But just the fact that God established some parameters for me there, it just made the trip such a blessing because I had no fear after that. Everything just was beautiful. It was just such a beautiful experience. A very intense God experience. I went there thinking I was going to help take care of people and do this, and this, but I was the one that was blessed. So it was just...
How would you define an intense God experience? How would you... What was it?
Just the feeling of God's presence, that you just know that He's there. And I don't know how to explain this part of it, but I could feel His love permeating every cell of my body. I don't know how to explain that, but I could feel that. It was just very intense, and there were so many moments of compassion and grief and joy and just so many emotions all wrapped up together that it was just beautiful. I just can't explain it. On our last day with this one family that we were staying with in Zambia before we were heading out, the lady of the house, it was her custom to every time that visitors came in at the last day of their stay with them, she would share with them what they meant to her, what their visit meant to her. So she shared this story with me that I just found so incredible because I thought, oh my gosh, another God was palpable. She shared that when I was examining her and I touched her with my hand, that she saw Jesus' hand. And I just kept that to myself because I thought, oh, this is really kind of strange. You don't tell people these kind of experiences. And then when she shared that with me, that was so affirming. So there were so many God stories in this. Another one, I was praying with this lady. We went to go visit some sick people, and one of the people that we went to visit was this poor lady who was staying with her parents. Her young children were running around. She was on a mattress, laying on the floor, burning up with heat, dehydrated. She had been sent home from the hospital, told there's nothing we can do for you. You're going to die. That was heartbreaking. So I went over to her, touched her, prayed with her. The lady that was with me, we prayed with her. Some months later, I got a communication from her that she was fine. And I just thought, oh my gosh, that's such blessings. So there were just so many blessings from this first trip, during the trip itself, afterward. I knew that when I went there and that there was such a tremendous beginning to it, but wow, landing when there was so much other chaos going around, I knew that okay, this was not a coincidence. God wanted me here for a reason. So what was that reason? So I had this quest to find out, okay, Lord, what are you trying to ask me to do? What do you want? I want to do your will. And like I had said earlier during the presentation, when I was driving around in the streets of Zambia, I heard Jesus say, come follow me. And it's really funny because he said it several times before I really recognized that he was talking to me. But I was hearing it, but I was kind of like not hearing it.
So you were literally...
Yes, hearing this voice in my head. And then I finally, yes, Lord, I will follow you. But it took a little, the whole thing maybe lasted 10 seconds, but it's like an eternity when you're in an accident, your life is flashing before your eyes. It was just one of those experiences, very surreal, but very real at the same time. And so, like I said, yes, Lord, I will follow you. So when I got home, I did a lot of prayer, a lot of praying. Okay, how does the Lord want me to follow him? What am I to do? And through that discernment process, that's where I started with the Helping Hands Healing Ministry.
Now, what year was this?
That was, my first year that I went there was in 2001. So by the time I did all the praying and such, it was almost a year later. It was in 2002 that I went ahead and put in the paperwork to start this organization, this nonprofit charity.
Could you talk a little bit about the nonprofit charity, what you've been able to do because of it?
Right. The main purpose is for poverty alleviation in developing countries, and that's what we've been doing. Primarily, we started out in Africa, in the countries that we were in, did raise some money for a dairy farm to feed an impoverished community, raise money for...
So who runs that now?
Myself. We have 4 board members. We run that, and sometimes we have some volunteer efforts to help with fundraising or this and that. But,
so do you hire people to work on the...
Everything it's a shoestring budget. Hardly any money goes toward anything but toward the projects. There's obviously a little bit of money for postage or a little bit of money for this or that.
Well, what about the dairy farm itself?
Oh, those were funds that we raised to give to the priest there that had sent that request to us. They needed this money to start this dairy farm. So they bought, I think it was 4 cows and 1 bull, fencing, and this was to provide nourishment for a community of 400. Mostly elderly, but some were younger, impoverished people. And then also, not only could the cows provide for dairy, but then their manure can be used for biogas. And so it was kind of almost like a green project, so to speak. So that was one of the things we did.
Now, when did that happen?
That one, oh gosh, I'd have to look back at my records. I think that one was in 2003 maybe or so.
What are some of the other projects you've worked on?
We raised funds for a school in Zambia so they could have electrical hookup for their school. And that electrical hookup was not only just for the students, but then in the evenings they could have classes for the adults to help educate them, to get them jobs and be self-sufficient in the community as well. So that was a project that was more than just for the school. And we've tried to pick projects most of the time that have been something that you just only are putting in a little bit of money, but it blooms into a bigger, the end result is much more than what you put in, which is what we try to do is maximize those dollars.
What countries have you been working in mostly?
Initially it was the 3 that I visited, Kenya, Tanzania, and Zambia. We were in Liberia in 2006. We helped raise some money for them, for they were building a medical clinic. And then in the last few years I've been working in Haiti.
How do you raise the funds for these projects?
So sending out a monthly newsletter. We've had a few fundraisers. When I get to talking to people, they hear about what I'm doing and they get inspired and send us money. So just a variety of ways. It's not a very big budget that we receive by any means, but that's basically how we've been doing it. We don't hire companies to do fundraising for us because, as you might know, they take a big chunk of the change. It's all word of mouth or what we do through the internet, by newsletter and YouTube and Facebook and those kind of things.